This is One Fat Boy, and here are my NBA game predictions for April 8th. Tonight there is 9 games, and I will be going over the spreads and over-unders for each of them. For the Knicks at the Wizards, we lean towards the Knicks +1. So how the Knicks play in the first half, as long as they build like a sizable lead, I think Washington, since they're not like the greatest team in the world, will have a hard time coming back against the Knicks, even though the Knicks are just notorious for choking games. So that's why I'm just leaning towards the Knicks to win. Like, it is a 1 point spread, so it's basically like a money line spread. So I'd lean towards the Knicks in this game. Overall, would I bet on this game? No, I'd probably stay far away from it, as like the Knicks, they can show up or they can just like completely collapse, and they can do it in the same game. And that goes the same for the Wizards too. But I will bet towards an over 221, as the Knicks have been playing better on offense, and so have the Wizards been. And their defenses aren't like the greatest in the world either, as what leads to like the Knicks' collapses are is like defensive lapses. So that's why I lean towards an over for this game. For the Bucks at the Pistons, we lean towards the Pistons +6. This is because the Bucks played last night, and I expect them to rest some starters. As for which ones, I don't know yet, but I'm just kind of predicting that the Bucks will have to rest some players, and the Pistons, they won't like win the game, like they might have a shot, but I think they'll be able to keep it close, as they're just playing for pride. Like, if you can get a win against like one of the better teams in the league, like that's always a good confidence boost heading into the next season. So I'm just betting on Detroit because they're young and they want to like build confidence overall to just keep it close. I'll lean towards an under, as I really expect like the Bucks starters to sit out, so it's going to be relying on a lot of the bench players to do a lot of scoring, which is something they're not used to. And then the Pistons can play some pretty alright defense. Their scoring isn't as reliable as other teams, so that's why I just lean towards an under of 223.5. For Cleveland at the Nets, I'm going with Brooklyn -7.5. As long as like you have Kyrie and Durant on the floor, you can never count them out of the game, as we saw during the Knicks game against Brooklyn. Like, Brooklyn's down by 20, they still turn around and win by 12 points. So as long as you got Durant and Kyrie, it's hard to bet against the Nets. So with Brooklyn -7.5, I see as reasonable, as Cleveland has been kind of struggling, and the Nets are trying to get up to that 7th seed, so they have home court advantage for that first play-in game. And if they lose, they still have home court advantage. I will be leaning towards an under of 229, as these Nets games have been kind of low scoring for Nets games, and then Cleveland does play better defense. So overall, kind of expect more defensive game. Like, the Nets just have to turn on for like a quarter or a quarter and a half and just keep the game like somewhat close, and they should pull away with a win. But I will lean towards an under, as the Nets are probably not scoring more than like 115. I think the Cavs kind of like the same way, like probably no more than like 105. So that's why I'm leaning towards an under. For the Rockets at Toronto, I'm going with Houston +14.5, as Toronto played last night, and as long as Houston just like puts the ball in the basket a lot, because if they're playing well, that'll keep them in the game. If their shots aren't falling, they just kind of crumble and will like lose by obviously more than 14.5 points. But I think because Toronto played last night, Houston should be able to take advantage of that and just keep the game somewhat close, like within 10 points. Like, they'll probably lose by 10. We'll lean towards an over, as Houston, they don't play the greatest defense, so even though Toronto played last night, like, they're really not slowing anyone down on Toronto. And then if they are going to keep it within 14.5 points, that means they will have to score the ball a lot. So that's why I'd take an over overall for this game of 228.5. For Charlotte at the Bulls, I'm going with Chicago -2, as Charlotte played last night. Even though they won by a lot, it's like you have to play the Bulls the next game. Bulls take care of like lower competition. They can't take care of like teams that are good at this game, but they can handle teams that are about their skill level or lower, which that's where Charlotte lands. So that's why I lean towards Chicago winning this game. I will be going with an over of 227.5, as Charlotte really has no defensive answers for like DeRozan or Levine, and that's just kind of a theme for the Hornets all year. So that's why I'm leaning towards an over, as Bulls should really score a lot of points, and if Charlotte can just like keep the game close, like that means they're keeping up with the Bulls scoring. Because if Charlotte, like I've seen Charlotte like score like low 100s or below 100, but I don't really see that in this game. They'll probably be in that like 110 to 120 range. Then Bulls probably be in that like 120, like 115 to 125 range. So that's why I'm leaning towards an over. For Atlanta at Miami, if you go with Miami -2. So there's a reason why I like Miami's like towards the top of the Eastern Conference, as they can kind of win due to their system, not like so much due to their players, even though they do have solid players. But overall, I think the defensive intensity of the Heat will bother Atlanta, and I'll just lead towards a Miami win. Like Atlanta, they're kind of inconsistent this year, and Miami's been a little more consistent, maybe not like past 2-3 weeks, but I think Miami needs to develop a rhythm right before playoffs, and getting a win here would probably help that. I will be leaning towards an under, as I expect Miami's defense to just win this for them, and they're not going to be like pumping up like 140 points, like 115 max from Miami. That's just how they play, and that's why I'll be taking an under of 228.5. For Portland at the Mavericks, we go with Dallas -18. I usually don't go for like spreads that are greater than 18, but since Portland is just not great at all, I think Dallas should be able to handle Portland no problem. Even like Dallas's bench unit is better than whatever's left of Portland. So just that in terms, like betting on Dallas to win, and then like actually covering an 18-point spread. Like I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas wins this by like 25, like the 22-25 range, but the spread stands at 18. This game should probably be over in the first half. Like Dallas should build that early lead, like the intensity of their defense, and just if they can get going on offense early, that's like game over there. I will be leaning towards an under 221.5, as I really expect the Mavericks defense to just really slow down Portland. Like I would not be surprised seeing them score under 95 points. I'll put it that way. Which in turn, if they're under 95, that means Mavericks have to score like 125 in order to cover like a 221. So that's why I lean towards an under, as the Mavericks probably not scoring. They'll be in that 120 range, like between like 110 and 125. They'll probably be in there scoring wise, and I expect Portland to be under 100. So that's why I'm just leaning towards an under for this game. For Phoenix at the Jazz, going to Phoenix +3, as we saw that their bench unit against the Clippers, like yeah, they'll struggle with certain lineups, but they had a 48-point fourth quarter and brought like a 30-point game like within 4. So that just shows like how good the Suns team is. So being within 3 against the Jazz, I think that is possible for the Suns. Do the Suns win? It might be a little bit of a stretch, but will they keep it close? I think they can. Will I bet on the spread on this game? No, because I don't know for sure if the Sun stars are playing or which ones are sitting out yet. That'll be like a game time decision. So as more like data comes in, you can kind of base it off there. But overall, it's like the Jazz should win this game if they're playing all their players. But I know the Suns will be able to keep it close with just how their system is. I will be leaning towards an over though, as really no matter who plays for the Suns, like as long as they don't have like a 9-point quarter, like this should go over, because I think the Suns can score a lot, and then Utah, they should be able to score. Like they are probably playing most of their starting lineup, so they should be able to score on the Suns bench unit. Like that shouldn't be a problem for them. So that's why I'd be leaning towards an overall for this game. For the Thunder at the Lakers, we're going to the Thunders +8.5. So if the Lakers playing last night, and they're really just playing like a very bare bones lineup, I'm really leaning towards OKC +8.5, and I honestly might take them winning, because they're just younger and they have like more fight in them overall from what I've seen from the Lakers. So I'm for sure leaning towards the Thunder in this game. I will be leaning towards an over for this game as, well, honestly, you could take an over or under, but I'd be leaning towards an over because I think the Lakers' defense will be very lackluster, and the Thunder, even though they're not the greatest offensive team, should be able to take advantage of that. Like if they just run, they should be able to get easy baskets that way. As long as they play with pace, they'll get easier baskets. So easier points that way, which will like bring up the score. And then for the Lakers, like they have still some players that can score, but I think their defense is just going to give a lot of points. And the Thunder's defense, it's like it can be great, and then it can just like not be so great. So just really kind of depends. Like probably won't be lean towards an over/under for this game, but probably just lean towards OKC winning the game. Thank you for watching. As always, bet responsibly. Have fun watching sports, and then good luck for your bets, and thank you for watching.